Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be building our own high steer arm for the Dana 60 from scratch. We are getting close. The front end of this Jeep is extremely close to being done. The last two major things are the steering and track bar setup. The goal is to start and finish the steering this week, the track bar next week, and then we can finally move on to other aspects of this build. I'm excited. It feels like we're making good progress. I can see it now. This Jeep driving up Hell's Gate in Moab in just a few months. That is going to be a good day. Today, I'm starting by building high steer arms for the knuckles of our Dana 60. This is something I was a little intimidated in building just because it's an extremely important part that cannot be built subpar. For safety reasons, that is. But after doing some research and assessing and comparing similar high steer arms on the market, I am feeling confident I can build a better product for this build in particular than what is available for me to purchase out there. With Ashley's help, I drilled the old tie rod mount location for our passenger side knuckle out to 1 inch. With a brand new drill bit, some cotton oil, and the drill set to a slow speed, this was a breeze and didn't absolutely destroy the drill bit. These high steer arms are going to be welded to the knuckles, but will also be tied in with a giant 1 inch by 8 inch bolt in this location. Having the high steer arms solely welded to the knuckles without a tie-in bolt like this would be extremely dangerous. Over time, stress would eventually cause the welds to the dissimilar metals to fail, which means no more steering. That is definitely something none of us want. We're going to be doing two main things in this video. We're going to be building the high steer arms for these knuckles along with the tie rod and the drag link. I went and bought some Heims, some DOM, and we're going to be using some metal that we had lying around, basically scrap pieces of metal, which is going to help us save money in the long run. Now, there's two basic ways that we could have gone about building the steering for this setup. There's either Heim joints or tie rod ends. The tie rod ends and how we would have to do them for this Dana 60 setup, for this 9904 setup at least, is arguably not as strong as the Heim joints are going to be. If we were to do tie rod ends, which I originally wanted to, because once again, arguably they're going to last a little longer than Heim joints, we'd have to buy a kit where the drag link comes down. It's kind of like the stock setup on a Cherokee where the drag link comes down and attaches directly to the tie rod. Like I said, that's arguably not as strong as having the drag link and the tie rod have two separate mounting locations. That's what we're going to be doing here. So to use Heim joints on a setup like this, we're going to need some high steer arms. And that's kind of what I've got going on right here. I already started. Basically, we're gonna have a separate mounting location for the drag link and the tie rod. They're both gonna be double shear mounting locations. This is a much stronger option than going with the tie rods, especially having that drag link connected directly to that tie rod. It's definitely a weak point. So high steer arms, we can buy them, you can buy them pretty cheap for around $100 to $120, I'd say. And they would look something similar to this. We're not done yet, obviously. We're gonna be using some 3/8 along with some 1/4 inch plate on the side to kind of box it in a little. We've got some 1.5 quarter wall DOM for this big 1 inch bolt. And then for the Heims, for the drag link and the tie rod, we're gonna be using 3/4 hardware. This is definitely the way to go. It's an incredibly big setup. There are tons and tons of companies that make these online, like I said, for around $100 to $120, then even more for some nicer ones. And this is the basic idea or basic design that I came up with from looking at those other companies. I noticed there was about 2 other companies out there that used a 1 inch bolt to tie it into the old tie rod mounting location. Most companies only use 3/4. I thought it was a really good idea to use a 1 inch bolt, just make it as strong as possible basically. And then same thing, there was only about 2 companies I saw out there that used the top plate as 3/8. For us, we want this to be as strong as possible, so I opted for the 3/8 top plate. We're gonna be making another plate down here that's gonna be very similar to this top plate. It's gonna be 3/8 as well, and then we're gonna be using 1/4 inch plate for the sides. I really like how this design came out. It looks really nice, pretty professional in my opinion. Like I said, we're gonna be building a bottom plate for this because these Heim joints have to have a double shear mounting location, so we need another plate down below here. And this 3/8 was all metal I had lying around. I already messed up one piece. This is the first one I cut out. For some reason, it didn't cut out these 2 bolt holes. That's totally fine, but I have another 3 pieces of 3/8 around this size. so we can't mess them up anymore. Or else I'll be going to buy some metal, and I don't want to do that because that costs money. These knuckles are made out of cast steel, not cast iron like the center section. So once we're done cutting out all the pieces for this, we're going to be able to weld this straight to the knuckle. This is going to be an extremely strong setup. I can't believe, Ash even said, like, she can't believe how big the difference between a 1-inch bolt and a 3/4 bolt. Just look at that. That is freaking nuts. I opted to use 1.5 quarter wall DOM, which has a 1-inch inside diameter. So that bolt fits in there really nice. I actually had to use a brake hone and hone out this piece of DOM a little bit. Nice tight fit, that's what we're looking for. One thing I had to keep in mind for this setup is we don't have wheels for the Jeep yet. So I just had to take an account to make sure that these weren't gonna be hitting the wheels once we go to bolt on the wheels, at whatever those will be in the future. The wheels I wanna get have a 3.5-inch back spacing. I did a lot of measuring and I'm pretty confident that these steering arms will not come into contact with the wheel or the tire. That's why we got a pretty harsh angle right here, because if we didn't, then it definitely would come into contact with the tire. Anyways, this looks pretty good. I think before we start on the bottom plate here, I'm gonna go ahead and get another one of these, basically this whole setup cut out for the other side. We're gonna make sure we don't have any issues with a drag link hidden anywhere, or the same thing with the tie rod. I don't think we will, but you know, it's better to be safe than sorry than going ahead and cutting out parts that or pieces that aren't gonna work in the long run. Then maybe before we get the bottom plates cut out, we'll go ahead and cut out a tie rod and a drag link. Looks pretty cool though. Looks really cool. Alright, so I got both of these bolted into place with that big 1-inch bolt. I'm on this side since it's just a little brighter. You can see we've got a slight curve down. That's just because of how this knuckle is turned for the tie rod. The way to fix that to make this flat is we'd have to cut a big 1.5-inch hole right here to kind of recess this plate, this 3/8 plate down into there, and then weld it to the DOM. But we're gonna see if it'll work like this. It's not ideal to have this at that much of an angle because we're gonna lose some movement on that heim, a few degrees. But it's gonna be a lot easier if we can make it work this way. We're gonna continue on right now. Before we make the lower plate, we're gonna bolt on some heims to this. Probably go ahead and make a drag, well, we gotta put it in the steering box as well. We're gonna probably go ahead and make a drag link and then a tie rod. Maybe we'll try the tie rod first. All right, so I went ahead and I got the steering box in so we can see what this angle is looking like for this drag link. And we're definitely gonna have to straighten out this plate. So what we're gonna have to do, so you can see how much of an angle that is at. So this heim, this is gonna be for the drag link, this is for the tie rod. The tie rod doesn't really matter too much. You can see the angle it would be at if we left the plate like this. But this heim joint is maxed out at basically the end of its travel upwards. And it's only gonna have to travel beyond this, which it literally can't right now, once the suspension is traveling and doing its thing. And that's gonna be tough because I wanna continue to use these 3/8 plates because I only have enough metal to make 2 more, which we're gonna need another one on each side. So I don't want to have to go out and buy more 3/8. We're going to have to drill out these 2 holes for the 1-inch bolt to 1.5 so the DOM can slide through it, and we're going to be able to angle it that way. So obviously I don't have a 1.5-inch drill bit, so we're going to have to rig something up to be able to use a hole saw. I had a hole saw somewhere around here. Going to have to go find it again. But yeah, let's go see if we can make that happen. Other than that, it should look pretty good after that. This drag link is going to be very, very straight, which is really nice, which means our track bar is going to be able to be basically almost flat. Hopefully we've got enough room in here for a track bar bracket. We should, because once these are pointing straight, should have a few inches in there. Should be pretty good. We'll be working on a track bar next week. It is going to be close, though, I'll tell you that, because this is the stock diff cover.
Once we have an aftermarket diff cover, which we definitely will, it'll probably pop out a little more. We're gonna be very limited on room, so hopefully we can make this all work. We pushed this axle forward quite a bit, I think about 2 to 3 inches. So that's gonna definitely make it tough because now we're limited in our room for the track bar and the steering, obviously, and we're gonna make sure it doesn't hit the diff cover down here. Let's see what we can make work if we need to. I know there's aftermarket pitman arms that we could buy, so that might be an option that we could go with. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, because I know those are a lot of money.
I rigged up a hole saw in the drill press to get this done. At this point, it's getting late, the hole saw will not cooperate, and it just turned out to be a terrible time overall. This was an old 1.5 inch hole saw I had, so it just ended up cutting terribly. It had definitely been used one too many times. After what felt like hours trying to get this one hole cut, I caved and decided to cut out a new plate from the 3/8 with a 1.5 inch hole, which is the correct size hole that we need. And of course, my machine screwed it up. It ruined this piece of 3/8 from the tip of the plasma cutter just being old and overused. I do have replacement pieces. I got them replaced and decided it was best to try to tackle this again in the morning. I guess, looking back now, I guess I could have used the plasma cutter to cut these holes bigger, but I instead opted to go buy 2 brand new hole saws this morning and try again. Cutting the holes worked this time. It was still absolutely terrible and took a while, but in the end we had the correct size holes that we needed. Day 2 of the steer knuckle fabrication. Once again, I only have 2 days to finish this project so I can get this video out on time for y'all. I went out this morning and bought a 1 3/4 hole saw so I can drill out this 1 inch hole to 1 3/4, and this is what I've come up with. You can see that this high steer arm now, the top plate for it at least, is sitting flat. We went right through it with the DOM, and let's see. So we got 0.2 right there this way and 0.3 that way. So that is perfectly flat. I'm pretty happy with that. So now we can add a weld around the top here to the plate to the DOM. Same thing with the bottom once the time comes. But yeah, it was pretty terrible drilling that hole. But we're gonna have to do the same exact thing to the other side, and then we can move on, I think, to making a drag link. I wanna make the drag link and the tie rod first to make sure there's not gonna be any issues, like I already said, before we go ahead and make a bottom plate. That was definitely needed. I'm glad that we went this route. I mean, there was literally no other option. But you can see that this is perfectly flat now. You can also see that this tie rod, the tie rod end joint, is gonna be completely flat, which is gonna be really nice. And the drag link end should be pointed up very slightly. We're gonna have to see. We're gonna go ahead and make a drag link next, I think, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll go ahead and make the tie rod as well, because the tie rod's gonna be the same either way. Shouldn't have any problems there. But I'm wondering what these drag link ends are gonna do and how far they're gonna need to flex during the suspension's travel. So I'd say the next thing to do is just go ahead and make a drag link. Gonna make sure this knuckle is straight. We can measure it for a drag link. That is some beefy steering. This is hopefully not going anywhere. Anyways, it's chilly. Let's get this door closed. If you watched the last video where I built the links, this is the same process. I set the heims to the center of their travel, measure from tube insert to tube insert, cut the DOM to length, drill a hole at each end of the DOM for plug welds, and finally get this piece of DOM, which is our new drag link, tacked onto the tube inserts. So it's pretty nice and flat now that we messed with this piece right here, made this piece flat. That you can see this heim. Let me try to get this one out of the way. You can see there's still an angle to it, which is fine. It can have a little bit of an angle to it, but we're gonna have to flex out this suspension after we get this tie rod put together and see how much more this has to travel, because if it has to travel more than that, then we might end up having to put a bend in. We're gonna have to get a new bar, end up putting a bend in it just so they can sit a little flatter. Same thing with this one up here. You can see it's already at an angle. That one actually looks like it's more of an angle. So we might have to put a bend in this drag link, but we'll have to see. Hopefully not, because I want to keep everything straight if possible. You can see, let's look at the red Cherokee. We've got the Dana 30 under here. We've got cav fab steering on this one. You can see it kind of sits a little weird. Definitely already at an angle, a negative angle on that one. And this one sits at an angle as well. You can see it kind of chews it up from sitting like that. But yeah, we'll have to see how it looks
once we get this all put together.
The drag link and tie rod are pretty straightforward for this setup. I built up the tie rod pretty quickly, got it installed, and checked clearances at ride height. As of right now, there are no issues that I could find. Nothing bound up or came into contact with something else. So I moved on to the lower plate. Thankfully, I have just enough 3/8 plate to get these lower plates cut out, as long as nothing goes wrong, which I was happy that it didn't. I designed this lower plate with the bigger 1.5 inch hole, made a few other small changes, and got this first plate tacked onto our setup.
I just got finished bolting on that bracket to the new steer arm, and it's looking amazing. You can see the measurements that I took came out perfect. Everything seems to fit just right. So like I said, this is an 1.5 inch outside diameter piece of DOM. There's a little more of a gap than I would like on this side, but over here it fits nice and tight. So this is looking really good. We got both heims inside of here, and I actually just went ahead and made some shims. We're gonna go ahead and throw one of these under each heim just to space it out a little bit, because when we go to weld this together, everything's gonna wanna close up a little bit, and that's gonna make it harder to get these heims out in the future. So these are very, very thin. They're much thinner than a 3/4 washer would have been, so that's why I went and cut these out. I don't know what this is, probably 16 or 18 gauge. Just some sheet metal I had lying around, but it should do the trick. The next and the last step, I mean for this side at least, this lower piece should be the same for that side, but we're gonna worry about that in a little bit. I wanna go ahead and figure out the outside plate for this. It's gonna be made out of 1/4 inch, and we're gonna go around this side, around this edge right here, maybe put a nice curve in it over here, and then come down at an angle. We're gonna have to put a bend in it as well, but that'll just tie it all in together. I noticed online some companies actually just stop right here, and this is what theirs look like, and I don't think that's the way to go. We definitely got to tie this all in with a piece of 1/4 inch.
This was an interesting piece to design and cut out. I like how it came out in the end, you'll see that in a little bit, but it took a lot to get to that point. Like most parts and pieces I've made for this build, the first piece I cut out is usually not the one I end up using. I'll get something cut out, think of a way it could have been better or stronger, and try again. Sometimes it takes up to 3 or 4 cuts before I like a piece or it comes out right. That may seem like a waste of metal, which I mean it probably is, but when this Jeep is done, I don't want to look under here at the suspension, at the steering or whatnot, and be regretful that I could have built a piece differently and possibly a little stronger.
So here's what I came up with for the side piece. It actually came out really good. I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. Actually, let me know what you think of this whole setup. I think it looks really good. It's gonna function really good, and we were able to make it pretty cheaply. I mean, these 3/8 plates were everything I had lying around. I just had to pay for the hardware, and for the side piece, it came out of that big piece of 1/4 inch that we already had. So overall, I'd say we did a pretty good job. I took a lot of measurements to make sure this was gonna come out good. It was tough to put this curve in here, but I was able to do it. It's very close around this whole edge right here, so that's gonna make for a nice strong weld right there. We're gonna be able to weld the backside of the lower 3/8 plate through this hole. We're gonna be able to weld all along here and all along the top. And then we can even go on the inside and weld the side piece to the top and the lower piece. So overall, I'd say with all this welding we're gonna have to do and the 1-inch bolt, it's gonna be plenty strong. I was actually gonna make this lower portion out of a second piece, but I decided to do the 2 bends, and it actually came out good all in one piece. I'm pretty happy with it. I was also thinking of originally making a plate that came, like, kind of hid the DOM right here, but Ash said it looked good like this, and I kind of agree, so we're gonna leave it like this. Like I said in the previous videos, I'm not finish welding anything until everything is ready to be finish welded. Especially these. I don't think we're gonna have a problem with the wheels hitting this, but I would hate to finish weld all of this and just have to cut it back off. That is if we got the wheels and they interfered in some way. So right now I'm gonna jump to the other side. I'm gonna cut out the 2 pieces that we still need to cut out. They should be the same exact pieces as this side, so should be pretty easy. We're gonna get those installed and see how this steering looks all together.
So I did film everything for this side, literally the same exact thing I just showed you. So I decided while editing that I really don't need to show you that whole process again.
That brings us to the end of the video. I forgot for some reason to film this outro back when I finished the high steer arms about a week ago. Since then, I've also finished the track bar. So in this B-roll, you're gonna see the track bar all said and done. We're gonna have a video on that next week, so you kind of get a little sneak peek into the next video. It's gonna be an interesting one. We ran into some complications of what we did this video and for next video. Anyways, the steering, I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm glad that we were able to build the high steer arms. Like I said earlier, it's not something that I thought
we were going to be able to do, but we did, and it came out great. This Jeep is slowly coming together, and it's pretty exciting. May not seem like it, but I mean, the front end of this Jeep is just about done. We just got to, next video, get the track bar all situated. My plans for the next couple of videos, I mean, I want to obviously finish the track bar. That's going to be the next video. See, we're going to have 2 other videos in between there, a little different from the fabrication ones that you've been seeing. They're still part of the series, but we're going to take care of 2 things basically before we jump to the rear of this Jeep. Just so you know what to expect, I'm going to put together a little video of how much this has cost me up until now. Just so if you're looking to do the same thing to say a Cherokee or just another rig in general, like an old 90s rig, you can have a general idea of how much this has cost me up to this point. And then maybe once we finish the rear, maybe some other things, and I'll do another one of those. And then I'm going to be making a video. We're going to actually be jumping on the inside of the Jeep, doing a few things on the inside. I'm not going to fully disclose what we're doing in there yet, but if you want to look up printy parts on Instagram or the internet, that'll kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. I'm very excited about it. From there, we're going to be moving on to the Sterling. We're going to be putting a truss on it along with some U-bolt eliminator spring purchase for those leaf springs. Just for time sakes and money sakes for right now, I'm going to be keeping it leaf springs in the rear. And down the road, if I'd like, which I'm assuming I probably will pretty quickly, we're going to be doing coilovers and a 4-link in the rear of this. Because I'm sure I'm going to take this on the trail, and I'm not going to enjoy how it's performing in the back, because like the front is going to perform great, but the rear is going to hold us back a little bit, being leaf springs still. So there's that. And then from there, I'm going to move on to some stiffeners. We're going to be putting on some mid and some rear stiffeners. We already have some fronts up there. We're going to be doing rock sliders. We're going to be doing some sort of boat side. We're either going to be finishing or replacing that rear bumper. Not really sure yet. So I've had a lot of fun fabricating everything up until this point, but we're going to, once we get all of that stuff done, we're going to move on to actually building these axles, putting gears in them, and lockers. That is the stuff that I find a lot of fun. We're going to be going 5/38 on these axles, and so we're going to be on the 40s. I've always run Yukon. I used USA Standard, I think once, and those gears blew up. So I'm going to either stick to Yukon, or I'm going to actually look into Motive and Revolution Gear. If you guys have any knowledge of those gear companies, just let me know. Let me know what you would recommend down in the comments below. For lockers, I think we're just going to do a locker in the front and the Dana 60 for now. Like I said, just to get this thing rolling and out onto the trail, and hopefully before winter we can move on to a rear locker as well. I'm thinking I'm going to go Ox locker. I've never used Ox products before. I need a selectable locker, so I can't do a Yukon Grizzly or anything like that. We're gonna be driving this thing in snowstorms on the highway when we're going up to the Pacific Northwest this year. So we can't be driving in 4-wheel drive with all 4 tires locked. That's just kind of dangerous. So it needs to be a selectable locker. So that leaves us ARB, Ox locker. There's probably other ones out there. Those are the 2 I'm thinking about. I've used ARB in the past, haven't had a problem with them. But I like the idea of the Ox locker. They come with a diff cover for the same price as the ARB, which is pretty nice. And they have what they call, I believe, a drive-away lock, where say we lost air, we ran out of CO2. We can pull a plug on the diff, put our drive-away lock in there, and we're locked for the rest of the trail. I think that's an incredible advantage to that locker. So if you've used Ox locker before and you have an opinion on it, let me know down in the comments. From there, I mean, that's when this is gonna get expensive, when I have to buy gears and a locker. I mean, I think that locker is $1,500 by itself. Never mind the gears or the rebuild kit. So that's definitely gonna get expensive, but if I want this thing done by summer, then that's just what we're gonna have to do. From there, we're gonna have to do the body work, so we're probably gonna have a few videos on that. That's what I think to be the boring stuff. I'm not looking forward to it, which is why I haven't been doing it. And then from there, we will do probably the best thing ever, the thing everyone wants to see. We're gonna be putting wheels and tires on this. Y'all already know that I'm going with the Nitos because I already bought one, but I'm gonna keep the wheels a secret for now. I'm excited. We're going B-locks. Don't worry about that. I wanna appreciate everyone who's been watching the series. I'm seeing the engagement. I'm seeing the likes, the comments, the subscribers. I really appreciate it. Whenever we've had a video come out for the series, I'm really excited to see how it does. And I just wanna say thank you because I'm like I said, I'm seeing the engagement. It gives me the drive and the courage, I guess you could say courage, to put out more videos for y'all. I've been going pretty hard for about the last 2 months. I've had a video out every single week. I think right now this is the 9th video, but I had a video in between. So this is the 10th video of 2024. My goal at the beginning of the year was to just have 24 videos come out this year. So we're almost halfway there. So I'm sure we're gonna be going beyond that 24 video mark. I'm not complaining whatsoever because I really do enjoy it, but it's not easy to come out with a video every single week. During the week, on my work nights, I'm either in the shop here or inside editing, at least until 11 o'clock. And then on my days off, I have 3-day weekends. I work on the Jeep for 10 to 12 hours. I'm inside of the shop. And then after that, I go inside and edit until about 2 a.m. That's probably not too healthy. But I really do enjoy it, and I just don't want to come across like I'm complaining. I guess right now at the end of this video, I'm just telling you all my thoughts. Here's a thought. Ash and I thought it would be really cool that once this Jeep is done, we go on a trail ride with you guys, the viewer. Let me know what y'all think of that down in the comments below. Let us know on Instagram. It would probably be something in Moab. Maybe we'd go do a day trip or an overnight trip over in Moab. We could also head down to the San Juan Mountains, you know, Imogene Pass, Ophir, Poughkeepsie Gulch, do something like that. If that's something y'all would be interested in, just let me know in the comments or like I said, on Instagram. And we'll see if we can set something up for whenever this thing is done. I know similar YouTubers to go on trail rides with them. They'll usually have a Patreon and you can follow them on Patreon and go on trail rides with them that way. I'm not sure if we're quite at that point, but I mean, maybe that's something in the future I can think about. As of right now, I just want to go wheeling with you guys in my Jeep. So I'm going to close this up. Be sure to follow us on Instagram because these videos I post each week are about a week and a half delayed. So if you go follow us on Instagram, you can get daily current updates if that's something you're interested in. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching. This is part 9 of the Cherokee Resurrection Series, where we're going to be coming out with a video every single Wednesday at 6 a.m. until this Jeep is done and hits the trail. If you enjoyed the video and haven't already, consider subscribing. We really appreciate it. I'll see you out on the trail, and I'll see you next time.